good morning. It was interesting to reread and Twomey. What? Yeah, it's changed. Okay. The computer's having a hissy fit, but that's okay, it's all on there. The problem I have with Anne Twomey is what she says. The problem is, did she say it or has she been taught that? For that reason, I'm not going to attack her as a person. Why would you? Unless there was evidence to show that she, not the government, have put this nonsense they call a system in place. The problem is, we have, with all the things that we do in this country, is the lies that come out of the political parties, because that's all they are, lies. And no matter what they say, it can't change. And Twomey stated that local government was around before federation in every constitution. Yes, it was, but not the one that they're talking about. It was the parliaments of the colonies. They were only colonies, individual colonies. Alright. What's this in the middle of what we're doing? Yeah, that's good of you to put that garbage on, so we cut it out again. Right, now, the individual colonies, individual separate parliaments of those colonies. They were local governments of those colonies. And that's what Anne Twomey should have explained, because she gave the impression, by what she said, that the local government is the system we have then and now. But that's nonsense. That system is treason and fraud. She said there's only two systems of government, state and federal. She got that right. The state parliaments are subordinate parliaments to the federal parliament. They are not governments. It is the executive, the legislature and judicature which make up the government of each state. The separation of powers is intermingled a little bit through the executive and legislature, but certainly is not when it comes to the judicature. It is totally separate. Any joining together of that would be blatant treason and constitutional fraud, and you should know that. Now, and you said this book, the green one, which I have, and I always call it the mucus one because mucus has no value, nor does this book or its contents. It is not the same as this book, as you call it, put together by two men. Why did you make light of it? Your mucus constitution is a load of crap. The annotations to it are incorrect. They are not the same as this one. If those black books you had over your left shoulder, you know, in your bookcase, those ones you pointed out and said that was the record of the constitutional conventions, did you read them? Did you actually read them? You should, like you give advice to other people. This book did not, nor did the other red one, which this is a derivative of, did that go into print in January 1901. No, it didn't. It actually came out 1903 or 4. Why? And it's evident in here some of the things that took place. Now, what you don't comprehend and fail to see when it's pointed out to you, the Parliament is not a government, not at state level or federal level. It is simply a legislature. It is not sovereign, it is not supreme, and its powers are limited by the provisions of the Constitution. Can't see that? Read the Constitution, it says it. The red book is the Constitution. It contains this Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK. It does sound like double Dutch, but it is not. You people are teaching rubbish. It's time to stop. The Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK, as proclaimed and gazetted, is this one on the 9th of July 1900. Why didn't you say the date, or didn't you know it? Is that what you are talking about, or don't you know? If you know, you should say it. This then contains the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK. It also contains the Commonwealth Constitution, a derivative of it. The reason it's a derivative, because the Commonwealth Constitution Act is an enabling act. Now, if you took the time to read this, taken out of those black books over your left shoulder, was the fact that that's Hansard. That is a record of what actually took place to create this act. But this has 9 clauses. The first clause, the 9th clause, does not, on its own, create the Commonwealth Constitution or the Commonwealth. It doesn't. Clause 4, the Commonwealth shall be established and the Constitution of the Commonwealth shall take effect on and after the day so appointed. That sounds like, look, it's set up the Commonwealth. Then you go back, it's got the 9 clauses in the Act and you can't change it. If you remove something, that's changing it, and that's what you're doing. And you stated it. You said the 9th clause is the only one that creates the Commonwealth. No, it isn't. That's a lie. Yeah, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying it's a lie. You also held up the little ribbon one with the Statute of Westminster tied to the back of it, and you said, this book is only a book, and this one is the Constitution. Take the Statute of Westminster off it, because that isn't even a lawful act. Came into this country by John Curtin, his government, in 1942, and backdated to 1931. It's invalid. You can't backdate legislation. You can't. So that's a lie, and you knew it. If you didn't know it, it's time you went back to school or read yourself. This book was written by Dr. John Quick and Sir Robert Garran. From those black books, if they are a true record. If they're not, it's from the true record. Why? Simply because this is a book whereby it contains our Constitution. It contains the 9 clauses put there by Queen Victoria. Our access to straight from state courts to the Privy Council is guaranteed in this book, and the explanation why. Each section, 1 to 128, is explained clearly the intentions of the framers of the Constitution. Who were they? Isaac Isaacs, Sir Samuel Griffiths, Parkes, O'Connor, all the rest of them. The first Prime Minister. They were all involved in making the Constitution, putting it together and interpreting it clearly. And you said, oh, it contains laws from another country, from America. No, it does, but it doesn't, not the way you said. It uses those laws as a way of showing you how they want the Constitution to go. They put it together. Who for? Us. And for that young bloke who keeps coming on here, how does that affect Indigenous people? Whereas the people, your people, same level as us, same everything, were created into the Commonwealth. The first nation created on this landmass was the Commonwealth of Australia. Anything else? Prove it. You can't, because it didn't exist. And I'll get into that big argument. Everybody here has the same standing in this country. And I'm not going to even go down the road of explaining what Queensland think it's doing through the federal court, because it's nonsense. Read decisions of the High Court. They were binding on them. So that court is unlawful. Decision is unlawful. Now let's look at the truth. Now you have put a story that local government has rights. Local government did not exist in its present form until 1979. This is the Constitution Act. See? Read it clearly. And it states that many times Previous section 52 and 53 repealed by 57 Victoria number 14. How did you do that when this is a letters patent? And contained in this says it's a letters patent. Now, the local government was added by number 88 of 1979, which is what I said. It was added in 1979 to every state constitution. Local government then being municipal authorities converted into a government. What for? Because it's always been the Labor Party's policy, and taken up by the Liberals and the others, they're not innocent in this, to create local governments. Oh, it's too much for the state parliament. Hogwash. Liars, thieves. It's just another way of draining the taxpayers to run a system and take the burden off the state parliaments to pay for all the roads and everything, which they get grants from the federal parliament for. How many trillions of dollars is collected in fuel tax every year? And it's trillions. It's not billions, it's trillions. What's the GDP? Trillions. Why are they lying? So they can hide it. They can hide it so you can't get it. So you can't see the treachery that's going on. And suddenly they get millions to give away in foreign aid to people. Did we authorise that? No. What does our constitution say? All money in relation to the federal government's debts, once they've paid them all, the excess goes back to the states in relation to head of population. Why aren't you listening? What part do you not understand? What part? It's time you stood up, and the states did not exist before federation. The High Court ruled that, and it is a fact, with number 48 of 1996, when McGuinty from Western Australia, the purported Attorney General, and he wasn't, hadn't finished his documents that he had to, he went to the High Court to get a ruling that the states existed before federation. Try and confuse them, but it backfired, because they ruled, and you start at paragraph 17, it says the state constitutions continue subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. The states are created under 107, 108 and 109 and draw their authority referentially from our Constitution. Referentially means subject to. The constitutions of the states continue subject to our Constitution. Why? Because the framers wanted it that way. They wanted to put a system in place so scum, like the political parties, cannot commit treason, fraud and everything else on the people of this country. They found a way around it by creating the two-party preferred system, which is 4 parties, under the lies and direction of the dishonest, deceptive United Nations. Another load of crap. See, Kirby got it right when he said, clearly, all those agreements signed outside this country mean nothing until they're put to the people in a referendum. Yuan said the Australia Act didn't need to go to the people. Well, it says that it changes the status of this country to that of an independent sovereign nation. Isn't that changing the Constitution? Or can't you perceive that? Perhaps you need to reinvent how you think. Because looking at what you have put, and I don't forget little red-headed David that was agreeing with everything you said like a little lapdog. Sorry, David, stop doing what you're doing. It's garbage. It's lies and it's fraud. Stop doing it to the Australian people. This country is going nowhere until you put the state constitutions back in place in their original form, because they're letters patents. Why? Because it says so. It says they're letters patents. Queen Victoria did it on the 29th of October 1900. Every single colony and the Australasian Council ceased on the 9th of July 1900 on the proclamation of this. They ceased to exist. How do we know? Because Quick and Garran, according to the law and facts, wrote this book, and in section 5138 it states exactly that. There was no authority with the agreement of all the states. simply because there wasn't any states. The states only continued subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. They never had the power to remove their constitutions and change them. Western Australia never put the lawful one in, put a lie in. This one, that they repealed dozens of sections out of, in direct contravention of the statute of monopoly, says you can't. It's all lies. It's all lies. You cannot change a letters patent. Only the reigning monarch can change the letters patent. The High Court's ruling now that all these politicians are not officers of the Commonwealth. They're ruling they don't exist in law. Why aren't you coming out and saying that, Anne? Or don't you have the guts to say it? I don't believe you've got the guts to say it, and that's your only problem. Oh, read it. Oh, why would you believe that? This is your attitude to things. In the police force, we were told to deal in facts. Keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut until you know what you're talking about. I return that saying to you, Anne. Read the Constitution, because you haven't. Read the red one, cover to cover, and then come back and tell me you comprehend exactly how it works. Because the system that's in place doesn't and can't. Where a parliament puts legislation together and passes it itself. When the Governor-General at federal level is supposed to put, with an executive council, 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper, puts the laws together. And it goes to the Parliament, to the lower house, and they debate it and pass it. Then it goes to the upper house, and they debate it and pass it, which is the Senate. And based on their beliefs, those people's beliefs, what the people of this country want, and if it complies with our Constitution, it is passed into law and binds the Crown in relation to that law. That's called manner and form of law. Didn't you ever learn that? If you did, you'd know it's not following manner and form. It's not. So it's unlawful. That's why I brought out the fact that Sir Samuel Griffiths, one of the people who wrote this, and the black books over your shoulder, the contents, if that is a true record. I don't know. I have actually read all the documents in relation to the Constitutional Conventions. That's why I can say with authority and fact that this book is written pursuant to it. It is a book. It is the Constitution as well. Constitutional Act. Then it goes to the Constitution derived from it after Federation. So it didn't come into place and wasn't coming into print in it might have started, but it wasn't completed until around 1903-4. The date is unsure in any of the records. I've had a look. Unfortunately, you got it wrong. Someone lied to you because you weren't around there and I weren't around. So I prefer to take the authority from the archives of this country, this state, which are from this country, and put it in place. You cannot run around saying something happened if it didn't. You see, the framers of our Constitution wanted our laws to follow as close as they could to this, the King James Bible. They did. Whether you like it or not, I don't care if you don't believe in God, that's your problem. And it is a problem for you, not me. I've had it up to here with people who, I'm a professor, I know. Well, you may be a professor, but I'll tell you now, judging on your video you did, you don't know. Sorry, David, nor do you. You've been listening to the wrong stuff. You're wrong. You're wrong because our Constitution says so. HCA 39 in 1915, the reason I brought that up before, Sir Samuel Griffiths at paragraph 148. See, I'm not reading it, it's in here, where it belongs. Because if you can't teach out of here, shut your mouth until you can. And I mean it. Do I refresh my memory from this? Yes. The book? Yes. Everything that comes around, I refresh my memory. But Sir Samuel Griffiths said at 148, here you find section 106 binds the state constitution and all laws made pursuant to it to the overriding authority of this. Now come back and tell me you don't need a referendum for the Australia Act, and Twomey, because I'll tell you then, if you can read this book and read that decision, and you come back and say we don't need a referendum, you are lying to yourself and to people you're trying to teach. You see, there was an interesting thing I read the other day. Kids at a very young age have a very high IQ. About 130, 140, sometimes more. And looking at some of the things they say, pure, clean, interesting things. But by the time they leave school, their IQ didn't go up, it goes down, because the education system is dumbing them down. Dumbing them down. Why aren't you teaching maths, English, social studies, history, geography? Why aren't you teaching that? Why aren't you teaching physics in primary school and advanced science? Why? They're capable of understanding it, but you won't teach them. How do I know that? Because I read every book I could on it while I was still in primary school. Everything I could get hold of. When I went to high school, I didn't read every book in the library, but I went pretty close to it. You see, I went to a good open school. It's Kalamunda High School in Kalamunda, Western Australia. The letters on the front of it and the badge on the front of it is fiberglass. The letters are steel. The class I was in, and all the classes in there were 3 for each year, made them. Under the instructions of Mr. Munsell, race cars. He also was our metalwork teacher. Mr. Miller was a woodwork teacher. How do I remember that? Because they knew. They taught out of their head. My first headmistress was Miss Falgate, and my teacher was Mrs. Morgan. They taught out of their head. Get an open book, so I'll refer you to this, and you're looking at the top of their head. No one wants to look at the top of their head. They want to look at your face and say, that's correct. Because they can go back and reference that to a book. And Twomey do the same. Till then, you've gone down a long way in my book. And you've taught too many people nonsense. Go back to our Constitution and the truth of it. So you have a very lovely day and the rest of this weekend. I hope people listen to what I'm saying, because I researched it, I've learnt it, I know it. And I did it for a reason, so that I could look at you, which every person who talks, look at Albanese, never looks you in the face like every politician. Why? Because he's a liar, we know that. And he can't look at you because he doesn't know the truth. Now all of you people learn the truth, and you teach it, learn it and teach it, or get the hell out of our universities so you don't stuff everybody else up that's there. You understand me? I've had a gutful, and so have the people of this country. No, I'm not setting myself up as anything special. I'm one of the 28 million people that make this country up. That's all I am. I've learnt, and now I wish to pass on what I've learnt to you people, and most of all my kids. And hopefully it'll sink in, and hopefully they'll do the right thing. You people, and you in the High Court, everyone in this country must swear the oath of allegiance, makes them officers of the Commonwealth. British Commonwealth first, and people who reside in this country, domicile in this country, sitting under a constitution. Every law passed in this country, whether it's at state level or federal level, there's no local government. That's crap. No power to empower somebody to pass a law that's not subject to the will of the people. That is a lie, and I've heard you say it, Anne. That's a lie. Wake up, it's a lie. Every single person who swears that oath of allegiance is an officer of the Commonwealth. Subject 275(5) of the Constitution. The High Court won't put it through because they come with the same old rhetoric. They know that they're not officers of the Commonwealth because they know there's no oath. Why aren't they issuing for warrants for the arrest for criminal contempt of the High Court for not being officers of the Commonwealth? Read your decisions. Forge. Read the one in Victoria. Forge versus Asic says you've got to take that oath, and they're not. you know 1 William and Mary, which is inherited imperial law, under the 9 clauses which you and don't believe exist, only know clause 9, the way you say it, it gives you people that impression, but the fact is all 9 clauses exist, all right. They exist. So, again, have a lovely day. I just had to add that bit because the High Court keeps saying they're not officers of the Commonwealth. All it's doing is prove every time we file a document against any of them, they should be bound over to stand trial by the High Court, and don't say you don't have the authority, you do, for criminal contempt of its court. The High Court is set up under our Constitution to rest subordinate courts to it. Use your brains. You are very intelligent people. I've spoken to a lot of the registrars. They are smart, but they know how to twist the truth a little bit to keep with government rhetoric. I get that. So have a nice day.